The moon hung heavy in the sky, its pale light dripping through the pines like silver tears. 12-year-old Clara knelt at the forest's edge, her small frame trembling from more than the autumn chill. The town orphanage slept behind her, locked doors and hard beds holding the other children inside. But Clara was awake, listening to something that stirred her heart far more powerfully than fear of the night. It was the sound of crying. A faint wail, carried on the wind. It was not the cry of an animal, she knew that. It was the voice of a child. And not a child from town. This voice carried something different in its tone, soft, rhythmic, almost song-like even in distress. Clara's pulse quickened. She could have turned away. She could have returned to the warmthless comfort of her bed, pulled the thin blanket over her head, and ignored the sound. After all, she was just an orphan, powerless, forgotten. But her heart refused. She knew the loneliness of crying in the dark. She knew the terror of calling for help and hearing silence answer back. So, she stepped into the trees. Dash dash dash. The forest swallowed her quickly. Shadows curled at her feet, branches brushed against her hair, and every crunch of leaves beneath her shoes echoed like thunder. But Clara kept moving, ears sharp, heart steady. She followed the cries like breadcrumbs. After nearly an hour, she stumbled into a clearing where the moonlight revealed a small figure curled at the base of an oak tree. A boy, no older than 5 or 6. His long black hair glistened in the moonlight, and his tiny body shook with cold. Clara gasped softly, rushing forward. "Hey, hey, it's all right," she whispered, kneeling beside him. The boy flinched, eyes wide and dark as night. His lips trembled with words Clara didn't understand, a language not her own. But she didn't need to understand the words, his fear was clear. Clara gently wrapped her threadbare shawl around his shoulders. "You're safe. I'll help you." The boy blinked at her, his breathing slowing just enough to meet her gaze. In that moment, a silent bridge formed between them, two children lost in different ways, yet bound by the same hunger for comfort. Dash dash dash. Clara realized the truth quickly. The boy was native, likely from the tribe that lived beyond the hills. She had seen them from afar during town visits, proud riders on painted horses, moving together like a single spirit. The townsfolk often spoke of them with unease, whispering about differences, but Clara had watched them with admiration. Their unity, their sense of belonging, was everything she longed for. And now, one of their children was here, lost in the cold. The boy tugged at her sleeve, pointing into the forest with urgency. Clara frowned. He must have wandered away from his family, maybe during hunting or travel. He needed to be returned, but the forest stretched endlessly, and she had no idea where the tribe might be. Still, Clara nodded. "All right, we'll find them, I promise." For an orphan, promises were fragile things. She had heard plenty broken in her short life. But this one, she swore, she would keep. Dash dash dash. They walked through the night. Clara held the boy's hand tightly, guiding him around roots and stones. He spoke occasionally in his language, pointing toward the stars or pressing his ear to the ground. Clara followed his instincts, trusting that his small heart knew the way. But as the hours dragged on, exhaustion pressed against her bones. At one point, wolves howled in the distance. The boy stiffened, clinging to her arm. Clara swallowed her fear, crouching down to meet his eyes. "They won't hurt us," she said, though she wasn't sure. "I'll protect you." It was a bold claim for a girl with no family, no weapon, and no home. Yet in saying it, Clara felt something stir inside her, courage she hadn't known she carried. The boy believed her, resting his head against her shoulder as they continued. Dash dash dash. The forest tested them. Cold rain began to fall, drenching their clothes, chilling their skin. Clara's teeth chattered, but she took off the last layer she had, an old wool sweater, patched and worn, and draped it over the boy. He tried to give it back, shaking his head, but she smiled through the shivers. "You need it more," she insisted. They crossed a rushing creek by stepping on slick stones, Clara nearly slipping but keeping the boy steady. They trudged through thick mud that clung to their shoes. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but when she found a few wild berries, she gave them all to him, ignoring her own hunger pains. Every sacrifice weighed on her body, but lightened her soul. For the first time in her life, she wasn't thinking of survival for herself, she was living for someone else. Dash dash dash. Just before dawn, Clara's legs nearly gave out. She slumped against a tree, the boy leaning into her, both trembling from fatigue. "Maybe we should rest," she murmured, eyelids heavy. But then, hoofbeats. At first distant, then thundering closer. Clara's heart jolted. She pulled the boy to his feet as shadows emerged from the mist. A line of riders, their horses painted, their feathers catching the early light. Warriors of the tribe. The boy's face lit up. He cried out in his language, waving his arms. The riders stopped, dismounting quickly. One, a tall man with braids streaked with gray, rushed forward and lifted the boy into his arms. Relief poured across his face as he spoke rapidly, holding the child close. Clara stumbled back, unsure. Would they be angry? Suspicious? She was just an orphan girl who had no right to walk their woods. But then the boy pointed at her, shouting excitedly. His small hands mimed the way she had held him, sheltered him, guided him. The tall man turned to Clara. His eyes, fierce yet kind, softened. He placed a hand over his heart, bowing his head in gratitude. The tribe brought Clara back to their camp at dawn. Fires glowed warmly, and families gathered around. The boy was returned to his mother, who wept and clutched him tightly, kissing his forehead. When she learned how Clara had cared for him, she walked to the orphan girl and pressed her forehead gently to Clara's, an embrace of honor. The chief spoke then, his voice carrying over the people. Though Clara could not understand every word, she felt their meaning. They were telling her story. They were calling her brave. And then, in front of everyone, the chief placed a woven crown of feathers upon her head. Clara froze, tears welling in her eyes. She had never been chosen for anything. Never been celebrated. Never been loved. Yet here, among strangers, she was being crowned, not as an orphan, not as an outsider, but as a hero. In that golden dawn, Clara's life transformed. The tribe welcomed her into their circle, offering food, warmth, and kindness. The boy she had saved clung to her hand, as though refusing to let go. And for the first time, Clara realized something profound. Family was not always the one you were born into. Sometimes, family was found in the act of love itself. She had entered the night as an orphan, but she emerged into the morning as something greater, proof that courage, kindness, and selflessness could bridge every divide. And though the forest still stood vast and shadowed behind her, Clara no longer felt lost. She was home. Final message. We all walk through forests of loneliness, fear, and uncertainty. But sometimes, in choosing compassion over comfort, we light the path not only for others, but for ourselves. Clara's courage reminds us that the smallest hands can carry the greatest strength, and that love, in its purest form, can transform strangers into family.